Welcome to Future Foodcast. I'm Pam Linemiller, your host. There is a big problem worldwide with food waste. We waste so much food, and there are organizations who are really making an impact in that area. And I have the CEO, the founder and CEO of one of those, Steve Lapidge. He is with End Food Waste Australia. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Hi, Pamela. How are you?
I'm doing great, and we're happy to talk about ending food waste in any way that we can.
Excellent.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing there in Australia with the organization?
Yeah, so we formed 6 years ago. We're a not-for-profit. Our aim is to halve food waste in Australia by 2030, and we are the key organisation for delivering the National Food Waste Strategy, which was released in 2017. Now, Australia actually bit off a pretty hard target. We decided to halve all food loss and waste, farm to fork, edible and inedible. So we have the largest volumes, I believe, in the world to probably well, try and reduce per capita. So 312 kilograms per person. But along the way, we will hopefully achieve Sustainable Development Goal 12.3, where the volume is about half of what the national strategy is.
Amazing. That does sound like very lofty goals, very ambitious. So explain to me about the 312 kilograms per person. Is that how much each person wastes that we're going to recover? Like, what is that number?
Not specifically, because although it is a per capita number, the way we calculate it is from farm to fork, as I said. So I mean, the individual isn't throwing out, the fruit and vegetables on the farm, but it does get counted against them. So at the moment, the national baseline for food waste in Australia is 7.6 million tonnes per annum. And, it's a huge number, and most people have no idea how to actually visualise that. So we often talk about it will fill our biggest sporting stadium in Australia, a stadium that seats over 100,000 people 10 times each year. So
That's
a massive volume. The 312 kilograms per person is from farm to fork. In actual fact, each individual is responsible for about a third of it. 102 kilograms per person is what the household food waste is each year. But we take it from the farm to fork, and it's extrapolated out to what we believe the food waste volumes will be by 2030 if we haven't tackled them. So 9.2 million tonnes. So we need to reduce food waste by 4.6 million tonnes, and it comes back to 156 kilograms per person is our target. And just for comparison, the target for SDG 12.3, which is to halve food waste and to reduce food loss, is closer to 80 kilograms per person. So
wow.
it is nearly half that target. And so based on all the work that we've been doing over the last 6 years, we believe that by 2030, we're on track to achieve about half the SDG target and about a bit over 30% of the National Food Waste Strategy target, which is a massive effort, certainly all the way there. And that's what we're focusing on for the next 5 years, is trying to get all the way there.
You have a very ambitious set of goals there to tackle. And as you said, probably some of the most ambitious that there are, as talking about your country and the number of people there and actually what you're looking to achieve and the impact you're looking to have. But you've got a whole plan laid out of how you're going to go about this. Where do you even start with trying to tackle this situation?
Yeah, as a country, we're a bit different when it comes to food waste, because we started with a very strong industry collaboration and then went to government to support that. So we raised, it was over $30 million, that's Australian dollars, with 60 different partners, industry, universities, and so on. And we went to the federal government and they matched it. So we had a base funding of 10 years of over $60 million. And that allowed us to really establish a strong foundation from which to build. Many other countries have started with policy initiative or a directive around making a change or putting in changes such as banning food waste going to landfill or something like that. and industry hasn't always got on board with that. And so,
Right.
yeah, we kind of flipped that on its head a bit. And
Yeah,
I believe it served us really well.
yeah, it really is a different approach because most other organizations within other countries don't have any kind of matching funds
No,
from government to help them along. I mean, they're usually fundraising for everything. So you still have
yeah,
fundraising efforts.
we do. So, I mean, the CRC is only one component. So the 60 million form what we call a cooperative research centre in Australia. And the CRC program's been going for over 30 years now. And the basis of that program is that Australia's really good at doing science and producing publications and patents, but we're really poor, one of the worst countries in the OECD at commercialising science. So the CRC program is about helping industry do good science and solve problems and then commercialise the results. So that's our basis. So R&D, research and development is very much in our blood, and we take an evidence-based or scientific approach to everything we do. And I think that's also been a good recipe or a good ingredient for our success as well. The fact that everything we do is evidence-based and really meticulous in our preparation.
Right. So the research angle, again, you said you're really good at that. It's making it actionable. So here's what we're finding. Now we need to actually implement some programs to act on this outcome of this research that we found and how we can actually make an impact. So that's where a lot of your efforts are as an organization.
Absolutely. A great example of how we've gone about this is the first 4 years of the Cooperative Research Centre. We got all the state and territory governments together with industry, and we did the biggest baseline of household food waste behaviour. So really understanding what volumes people were throwing out, why they were throwing food out, and that formed the basis of a business case to the federal government to undertake or to develop and undertake a nationwide consumer behaviour change campaign. That was launched just the other day on the International Day of Awareness of Food Loss and Waste. It's called The Great Unwaste. Let's Turn Food Waste Around. And that's a really unique and innovative campaign built on solid science that's targeting, household food waste behaviours that lead to large volumes of food waste. Because in Australia, over a third of our volume and over half the value of food waste lost, which is $36 billion a year, happens in the household. And we can all change it. We can all do something about it.
That is amazing. Congratulations on kicking that program off. And I don't think I've heard about a study like that elsewhere in the world where you actually did the research on why are people throwing food away, how much food is being thrown away in the home, not commercially or in manufacturing or anything like that, actually in the home. That's really unique.
Yeah, it was an extensive piece of work. There was about 13 or 14 reports generated out of that, all aspects around behaviour and volumes and correction factors if you're using, diaries versus bin audits versus, what goes down the drain. It was exhaustive research, but it meant that we could build a really strong campaign that was, all based on evidence. And most of that has been peer reviewed in scientific papers. And, I think as a organisation, we've produced something like 160 scientific publications over the last 6 years. So, hitting well above our weight in terms of the food waste literature. So.
Yeah, I was going to say that is quite a proliferation of research that you're putting out there, and so that's really focused on the consumers, those that are at home. That program, as far as those that are at home,
program.
Yeah, you also work with companies to help
We
them.
do. Yeah, our key offering there is particularly, well, besides the research, which is generally, aligned with one company trying to solve their specific problem, and that's the CRC. We also created the Australian Food Pact about 4 years ago. And that's based on the court-ordered agreement out of the UK, and it's a voluntary agreement with industry where they come to us and say, these are our food waste problems, and we will establish a benchmark and then work with them to find where they can reduce food waste throughout their supply chains. They report in each year to see how they're tracking. and we work. We can give them industry comparisons of how they compare to their peers and so on. All de-identified, of course, but and it really helps them on their journey to ideally halve food waste by 2030. But many companies are much more ambitious than that, and we already know that some companies like IKEA have already halved food waste in their operations globally. I think they're at 54% at last count, and we're not even at 2025 yet. So, companies can do it. They can halve food waste if they put their mind to it. And the great thing that has been reported there is that executive bonuses and so on are linked to food waste reduction goals in companies like that, and some of the big supermarkets, and that's what it often takes to really achieve those targets and make them serious. I applaud those companies that are doing it.
So if I'm a company who is interested in setting some goals, but I don't really know what to do, where to start, and how to do that, I can connect with you and partner with you to help me figure out the best way to approach that, and maybe almost like consulting to help us figure out how to set some goals and approach it.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a fee involved, but you get kind of a dedicated case manager to work with you, and our technical managers or case managers are some of the best in the business. So you're buying an amazing level of expertise rather than necessarily hiring that in-house. And so it's actually a much cheaper way, if you're serious about food waste, trying to hit your targets, than bringing on all the internal staff that you might need, that in many ways we can provide from day one.
Right, because you have a good breadth of resources, and you've done all the research, and this is what you do, as opposed to maybe having a department in a company, which is a lot of what I've heard, which is not a bad thing. I mean, that's a good step in the right direction, but it seems like, being able to take a broader approach and maybe take in more information and have more opportunities or possibilities of choices to make for what might be the best to do, and what order to do those things in, and making all those decisions to move forward in the proper direction.
And of course, you're not just buying our expertise. We don't know everything as an organisation. You're buying into international expertise, because we work closely with organisations like REF, the Waste and Resource Action Programme in the UK, with Food Waste Free United in the Netherlands, and Wageningen University. These are global leaders in the food waste area and very close collaborators of ours. And so, you're buying into a wealth of expertise from day one.
Nice. Okay. Well, I didn't realize, but I should have realized that all of you talk to each other that are involved in this space, and share best practices and best approaches. And that's really great to hear. Well, what encouragement might you give to maybe other countries? I mean, it seems like Australia is kind of on the front end of this. You take a different approach to it, the way the government has gotten involved with you and your initiatives. Do you have some encouragement or some thoughts for maybe other countries who haven't moved in that direction yet and are trying to figure out how to do it?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a checklist that every country needs to be successful, or at least set themselves up for success. And we've got a lot of those ingredients in place. So, start with a national strategy. And we've had one from quite early in the piece. So, the UN member states committed to Sustainable Development Goal 12.3, halving global food waste, back in 2015. And by 2017, we had our national strategy in place. Some countries have only just recently released their national strategy, including America. That's not a criticism, but it's certainly better late than never. But we've had it in place from very early on, which was a great thing. We then did a national baseline in terms of where we're at as a country in terms of food waste volumes. So, strategy, baseline. We then formed the national public-private partnership. So our organisation is the National Public-Private Partnership, and we have over 100 participants that we work with on any given day. Another 100 are involved in different projects, but not formal members as such. So again, you really need that national public-private partnership, and that's worked well in the UK, and it's worked well in the Netherlands and many other countries as well. Next is the voluntary agreement. For us, it's the Australian Food Pact, different name in different countries. Many different countries are now putting in voluntary agreements. I think there's about, or maybe close to 10 major voluntary agreements around the world happening. RAP is really heavily involved in coordinating them at a global scale. And again, it's an essential ingredient with industry. And then on the consumer side, having that nationwide consumer behaviour change campaign, which for us, we've only just recently kicked off. And we need to expand that and make sure it's consistent and ongoing until 2030, which we don't have the funding for at the moment. Again, you need something to target industry, something to target consumers, because that's where the two big hotspots of food waste are.
Right.
So with those 5 or so different ingredients, I think you've got the recipe for success as a country. But then you've also, you still have the issue around the long-term funding arrangements here. Right. I don't know really any country that has funded their peak or national bodies until 2030. This stage, we all come to funding cliffs in a not too distant future, and they are cliffs that we need to get over if we've got any chance of achieving the halving of food waste target by 2030.
Right. Yeah, and it's always a challenge, right? To do the fundraising part, and everybody's going to have that same challenge. So I'm sure that you will figure out how to work through that, as you have already done in the past, to keep moving forward. Funding cliff, though, I haven't really heard that terminology. It just sounds very ominous. It's like
it is, and it is. It's paints a picture in your mind, and that's what we need. So some areas of our business are funded for longer than others, but some of the critical areas like campaign and the Australian Food Pact do have funding cliffs in the next couple of years, and they're the things that we really need to attract some investment in to try and avoid those cliffs as much as possible, because we've just got such great momentum at the moment. We would hate to lose that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing what you're doing in Australia. And just informationally, congratulations on launching your program. We look forward to monitoring what's happening moving forward. And I hope that your just encouragement and the success of what you've done so far and what your goals are moving through and into and through 2030, are encouraging to other countries and other organizations that are looking to do similar work that you're doing. So thank you so much for being with us, Steve.
Thank you, Pamela. It's been an honor.
Yeah. And if you have enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and comment. We would love to know what you think. We'd love your feedback on this topic if you'd like to hear more. And don't miss next episode. Until then, I'm Pam Linemiller.
Thanks for listening to Future Foodcast. Future Foodcast is powered by Farm to Plate, the leading food blockchain platform. Subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to stay up to date with the very latest innovations in the food industry.